when I had this TV show for a little while, you kind of just export everything and send it to HBO, and then it premieres, and then you don't have any real physical kind of reaction to it. And it's so cool to hear everyone laughing at this thing you've been working on for so long. And it's almost like a drug to hear that kind of laughter.
Did you have like an early beat in the movie where that was like, if people laughed at X thing, you would know immediately that it was working?
Yeah. I think that the comedic timing in this piece is very, very precise, and I spent a lot of time making sure that, you know, the line matches up and times perfectly with the shot, so that if you're reading something in the shot, I will then deliver the punchline, you know, at the right moment. And it's like a tough thing to kind of finesse.
How did you know people were liking it? Like how was feedback getting to you?
Usually my friends are the hardest audience to entertain, and I like to keep that as like a standard, because they're tired of my old jokes, and you know, I want to make sure that everything feels fresh, and that, you know, I mostly just want to entertain the people that like I've known for a while. After doing this for long enough, you get a sense of comedic rhythm, and you can tell when something is gonna hit in a way without having to like really focus group it. If you miss the timing on a punchline on a first viewing of something, it's like kind of hard to kind of recover that sometimes when you show it to someone again. So I try to get everything on the first watch.
It started with a strike, right? And you weren't looking for a project, you were just looking for something to do, and found yourself at the Hallmark workshop, correct?
You know, I had a handful of false starts kind of right after the show ended, just with certain concepts that didn't really flesh out. But when the Hallmark writing workshop appeared, I just thought it was like a funny way to spend an afternoon. And I brought my little camera just because I usually do. And as I continued to think of new ideas, I just started to put everything together and realize that like it's more fun to link unrelated things. I think especially with this movie, because there are so many individual characters in it that have nothing to do with one another, and making them all into one coherent narrative is like the hardest Sudoku puzzle that, you know, has ever been put in front of you. But solving it is like the joy.
Is there a particular character, I'll say, person in the documentary that like cracks you up the most?
Yeah, I think the gumbuster guy is one of my favorites, just because he cares a lot about that stuff, and he's the only guy that takes gum off the streets in New York. And you know, a lot of people have really great inherent comedic timing, you know, just in the way that they just deliver information and, you know, their confidence. So it's like you don't really have to do as much work as you would with like an actor. It's actually hard to make them funny a lot of the time. But I think a lot of people are just naturally funny.
How often had you thought about gum on the street, on the sidewalks of New York?
I was aware of the gum guy for a while. When I started to take the concrete concept seriously, the gumbuster guy was one of the first people I thought of, you know, because he is very much intimately involved with the condition of the concrete in the city, but it's a degree or two removed from the actual subject matter in a way that I think illuminates something, I think, more poetic or kind of existential about the way that we behave in public.
When you went to the Hallmark workshop, had you like how much had you watched or engaged with Hallmark movies at that point? Like,
I ambiently engaged with Hallmark movies for most of my life. I think as most people do, you know, they're just kind of like aware. But I never really tried to analyze what the thing was that made it so successful. And it's this cyclical nature of storytelling and cyclical nature of anything in life. And I think I kind of just wanted to explore whether or not that was a good or a bad force.
Before you started exploring it, were you leaning one way or the other, good or bad force?
I was leaning towards it in like a bad way at first because like to me, routine and cycles were about like unproductive behavior in a certain way, like getting involved with cliches of my own and just like kind of relying on stuff like that.
Do you have like a subculture or a person, something you discover that like most changed your mind about anything?
That's a heavy question. Each person I talk to and spend a lot of time with, I think teaches me something really unique. I mean, honestly, the guy that castrated himself, in the finale of the show, I think that was one of the most earth-shaking, thoughts, about pleasure, about the future and stuff like that. And I think about that a lot.
We've been asking this to actors, but I think this applies to you too. What's a note that you never want to hear again?
Keep the subject in the center of the frame. How's this look here?
You're very center.
Okay, that's fine. There's no problem with that. I really resented when people would tell me to put the subject in the center of the frame whenever I would work like commercially or professionally or something. It was almost as if that was like what you had to do. And I get it. It's like there are different formats, but I usually like to keep things justified on one side or another because there's usually a lot of interesting stuff happening somewhere else in the background.
What was your most serious career backup plan?
Oh, wow. I never really had a backup plan. I've always kind of just been doing this, I think I thought about getting into carpentry at one point, just because, it was satisfying to like measure things and cut things. And there's something like really nice about that. But this is kind of the only plan I've had.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for chatting.
Yeah, totally.